China Taiwan, along with the Minister of Labor et al., the Honorable Spencer Brand. But the Honorable Mark Brantley is away this evening, and he has asked me to fill in for him. I will say though, this is certainly not anything new to me because I've always had the chance in the past to come here to fill in for the Honorable Mark Brantley. But of course, over the last year thereabout, there have been other persons who would have come by, the Honorable Mark Brantley, of course, then you would have had the Honorable Troy Liburd, and I believe the Honorable Eric Evelyn would have come in and hosted on a couple of occasions. But I'm a bit rusty, but I'll get off the rust shortly. But it's always good to be in your company, and it's always good to come and dialogue with the people of Nevis, people of the Federation, and of course, persons who would interact with us from around the world, because we are listened to near and far, far and wide. So I want to, at least at this point in time, say good night, good morning, good evening, good day, whatever time it is in your neck of the wood. We want to just bid you welcome and express our delight to have you with us. Indeed, it is probably just after 8 in the morning in Taiwan. So if the Honorable Premier is listening, I want to say good morning to you, sir, and good morning to your entire delegation, because as I said before, the Honorable Spencer Brand is there weekly. Daniel, Permanent Secretary, Daniel, who is the PS in the Premier's Ministry, and I believe the Permanent Secretary, if I'm not mistaken, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the federal government, is also on that trip as well. So that's a contingent that is over there representing the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And of course, we always hear people are traveling, what are they bringing back? But of course, the relationship, or the long-standing relationship that we've had with the Republic of China Taiwan date back to just about 35, going on 36 years ago. We would have established diplomatic ties with the Republic of China Taiwan. And this relationship has certainly borne fruits over the years, whether it's in education, healthcare, infrastructural development, in training, agriculture. So it is all sectors of our economy here or in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis that has had a positive impact through this particular relationship. And we're hoping that it will continue for many years to come, because I do believe the government and people of the Republic of China Taiwan do cherish our relationship. And of course, diplomacy, as they say, matters, and this has certainly been more than just a matter of fact. So it has been one that has certainly worked well for the entire Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So this evening, we're here though, and of course we'll have an active and a busy show this evening, because we have persons coming in and out. We do have quite a number of persons who would be with us this evening in various capacities. We'll start off this evening though, because my understanding is that we're celebrating Mosquito Awareness Week. You see, everybody have a week now. Everything there's a week for. Even the mosquitoes have a week now. So I'm being humorous, but that is just how it sounds. But it is a serious matter. And when we get down to the discussions we are going to have this evening, you will understand why it is a serious matter for us to deal with and contend with here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and more so here on the island of Nevis, because mosquitoes, of course, you know, do pose a serious health threat to our people and our citizens, that is. And as such, it is our duty as an administration and as persons from the department, or the environmental department, that is, they do have a task on their hand to ensure that we are kept safe. And the education is done to ensure that all people are doing the right thing and abiding by the right practices to ensure that we have a clean and healthy environment. So that being said, I believe the two persons who are here with me this evening, they are the experts on mosquitoes. And so I was just introducing them to some extent, but they would be the one who would develop the discussion as we go along. So I want to turn to my guests. First of all, I have on my immediate right Mr. Javier
Otley.
Otley?
Yes.
Well, we call him by another name, but not for tonight, so we'll leave that for another time and place. And then Miss Chevany Nesbitt. And then you'll tell us your role at the department, at the environmental department, that is. And of course, we'll develop from there. You'll lead the entire discussion this evening and let us know why you're here, what do you expect, and impart as much knowledge as you can. So I turn over to you, Javier.
Yes, good evening to the general public, listening public, wherever you are, whether on earth or wherever. Good evening to your delegate in Taiwan, my friends in Japan who are listening right now, and all around the world. Now, mosquitoes poses a big threat to the entire Caribbean. I can't say the whole world because once you're outside the tropics and subtropics, then you have no problem with mosquitoes. But what have been noted is a cycler trend by CARFA, who is the Caribbean Public Health Agency, PAHO, who is Pan American Health Organization, and the CARICOM community, Caribbean community, who is CARICOM. And in the 9th of May in 2014, what was noted, they noted the trends where every 3 to 5 years you would end up with some new disease, or well, we call it a new disease, or some disease that was there which was always coming back, but new to us in the Caribbean or the Americas, as PAHO would call it. Now, in 2014 they started, and then in 2016 the first mosquito awareness for the Americas came about. Now, this happened when you had the Zika outbreak, and we know over time we've heard about Zika, we have heard about chikungunya, and we're hearing about them all the time. Now, dengue has been around for some time, and we know yellow fever is prevalent in some of the Caribbean countries, like neighbors down south. One of the things that we've been doing and we've been collaborating with agencies where we have Public Works who have done some work with us, and one of the agencies that have really worked with us tremendously is the Nevis Red Cross. Nevis Red Cross have been working with us and recently they went around doing some cleanups, because when it comes to mosquito, once you have the refuse around, your old fridge and so forth, when they collect water, then you have the tendency to breed mosquitoes. Red Cross have been doing some cleanups in some areas, which was done 2 times this year and 1 time last year, and they have reduced a number of the breeding sites in some of the areas. Now, for the Mosquito Awareness Week, the theme is Small Bite, Big Threats, and with a slogan which says, "Fight the bite, destroy mosquito breeding sites." And this have remained for the past 2 years, that they have been doing this mosquito awareness. Now, for Nevis, we have been doing some public awareness sessions, and we continue to do them accordingly. I just completed one. For tomorrow evening, one of the things we'll be doing will be at Bath Community Center, starting at 4:30. And the information that's going to be given is, we give you the science about mosquitoes, we teach you control and prevention methods for mosquito. We have a terrible thing that's happening right now, and we have one of the mosquitoes which is a nuisance for Nevis, which is called the Culex mosquitoes. This mosquito live basically in the dirty water and in septic tanks. Now, for 97%, I'm just trying to figure here, but it might be maybe even more than that, but 97% of the newly constructed houses, even the housing projects that we have, they are breeding mosquitoes, because the septic tanks are not properly constructed. The pipe that they leave on the top, they have the hole open, and mosquitoes enter and exit there. The vent stocks on the roof, They enter there and exit there. And this has become a big issue. We even had a campaign where we went around there, they covering vent socks just for that in some areas. And what we want to do is to have the homeowners take responsibility for these things, because bear in mind this thing, that there are legislations against breeding mosquitoes. And we need to enforce these around here. I could remember recently where this guy was charged in Barbados for breeding mosquitoes unknown to himself.
Okay. Well, you have a lot of information, I know, to impart, Javier, but let us do this. We're going to come back to it because I have a question regarding the events and what can be done to protect persons as a result of implementing certain practices in that regard. But let me introduce Chevrolet at this point in time. She has been sitting there quietly, but I was hoping that we would have gotten her in on the act much earlier. But Chevrolet, you have the microphone, and I believe persons will want to hear you. And you can introduce yourself at this point in time.
Good evening to the listening audience. I'm Chevrolet Nisbet. I'm health educator at the Health Promotion Unit. So we work with the Environmental Health Department sometimes, but I am actually stationed at the Health Promotion Unit as one of the senior health educators. So one of my roles would be when they have activities such as their Mosquito Awareness Week, we would help them in getting information out to the general public. And in events where they need us to help with education, we would actually step in and help them with that kind of stuff as well. So I'm not an environmental health officer, but we do help them at the Health Promotion Unit, as that's part of our duties.
And you do have a significant role to play in terms of publicizing some of the events and activities from the Environmental Health Unit. But Javier, did you give the date that we're working with? And you may want to go into some of the activities throughout the week that we have upcoming.
Yes, as I said before, on Thursday night, that's tomorrow, we'll be in Bath Community Center starting at about 4:30. Now what we'll be doing is somewhat like an open house and a fair. So you come and you see the exhibits of the mosquitoes, you see them close up under the microscopes, and we teach you about the mosquitoes, control methods, and the prevention. Many different things will be discussed. There'll be a short lecture about roughly 4:45, which will run for maybe say 20 minutes, and it's like a fair. Then the same thing will happen on Friday in Memorial Square in Charlestown. Then the Monday the 13th will be in Brown Hill Community Center. The 14th and 15th will be at Red Cross Building in Charlestown. And all these sessions start at 4:30. On Thursday, we'll be in the Franklin Brown Community Center in Combermere. Thursday the 16th. Yes. I know we say it's Mosquito Awareness Week, but we stretch it out for...
Well, for this particular issue, yes. I mean, you have all license to stretch a week out to 10 days.
Yes. But there will be continued events, but just for this particular week, we focus on some areas.
2 weeks.
Yes, 2 weeks.
Back to the event.
Yes.
You said even the newly constructed houses, like
yes.
affordable income houses, you're finding that the vent that's at the top of the roof, and also the vent that releases that pressure from the septic, those are not covered properly. Now, you know, when a house is inspected by NEVLEC, they go through the inspection process to pass that house before they connect the electricity. I'm not so sure if an extensive inspection is done for water, but anyway, that being said, my thinking then, perhaps in collaboration with planning, then of course we may have to move towards an inspection by environmental and hopefully you don't hold up the process. But it is an important issue if that is the case, because you understand what you have inside of a septic, and you understand if it's breeding mosquitoes, what is actually coming out. and impacting the health of humans or the citizens.
Yes.
So I don't know if you have a suggestion in that regard, or
Well,
there must be
all
there
those-
should be some public awareness program that you want to put in place to ensure these things are
That
addressed.
that would be done, and we have some sessions designed for the contractors. Those will be coming in some weeks to come,
Mhm.
and that would be discussed for not just contractors but the homeowners. So when your home is being built, you could at least observe and say, okay, this is going wrong, that is going right. Because what happened is this: when you come to these vents, take for example like a simple thing like the pipe that extends into the first chamber of the septic tank. Now some person may not even know what that is,
Mm.
but the pipe that goes down in the first chamber of the septic tank. Now whenever I inspect an old septic tank like from years ago, you will notice that the pipe is extended into the water, at least 3/4 way down into the water.
Mm.
Now what happens in the older septic tanks are with the pipe that goes down into the septic 3/4 way, when the mosquitoes enter, they will drown. But when you leave it hanging off with just the T up above,
Mm.
the mosquitoes enter and they can fly around inside here. They have a lot of space, so when they fly around inside, they could go and lay the eggs on the water on the side of the septic tank. So you'll have a lot of mosquitoes breeding there, and one mosquito could give you up to 300 plus eggs.
Mhm. I don't know if you're old enough to recall back in the day, those vents were covered with something like
Wire mesh.
a wire
Mesh.
mesh.
Yes, that
I
is
don't
what
see that happening
that is
now,
what we're
so-
coming to.
So that is
Yeah.
that is something we probably need to address. Over time, it
You
disintegrates.
disagree
now
the grace, but you must maintain it.
You must maintain
Yeah.
it.
And that is one of the things that we were going around doing recently and
Mhm.
assisting persons. We actually applied, put them on for them, explain to them to maintain.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have been doing that, and it have worked in some areas, I must say, but there are areas that you can't reach.
So here's what it is. Okay, a roof is constructed, and most times the homeowner would
Never go up there.
never go up on the
Yeah.
roof. So I suppose there's where the education comes
Comes in,
into play
yes.
with respect to the builder before they leave that roof. That vent has to be covered.
Right.
On the ground itself, most times I believe there is a cap that is placed on that vent that comes out of the septic itself.
Yeah,
but
which
In
is not
some cases,
necessary.
it's not closed properly in some cases.
Yes.
I think we just have to be more cognizant of these facts, and
And over time that deteriorates as well.
it deteriorates over time.
Yeah.
But it may seem like a simple matter. I was humorous to start.
Yeah.
Well, I had some humor to start.
Yes.
Even mosquito have a week.
Mhm.
But these are conversations that we'll have to have on an ongoing basis, because it is amazing that a mosquito, an insect this small or that small, can create so much havoc in
Yes,
throughout
and
the world.
according to World Health Organization, with the statistics, lions and sharks put together
Mhm.
don't kill as much persons daily as mosquitoes.
Mhm. But this small insect create these kinds of diseases and illnesses. What about the mosquito that is so unique?
You see, the thing about the mosquito is this: the way it feeds, the females is the only mosquito that bites.
Mhm.
The males go about and pollinate plants and so forth, but the female, after mating, have to get a blood meal. That blood meal fertilizes the eggs, help in fertilization of the eggs.
Mhm.
And after doing that, she will go and find a container where she can lay her eggs.
Mhm.
For example, we have the Aedes aegypti mosquito. The Aedes aegypti mosquito is the one that's responsible for dengue fever, for chikungunya, Zika. Now, this mosquito, when it lays its eggs, it could lay egg in the dry season,
Mhm.
and it could withstand this dryness, which is called desiccation, for up to 365 days. So imagine 364 days, you may not have any rain, you may not have any water,
Mhm.
but that last day when the water comes down and hit the egg, as long as the conditions are favorable, you could have hatching out in like 1 to 2 days.
So the Aedes aegypti
Yes, Aedes aegypti.
mosquito
Yeah.
bites Chevrolet.
Yes.
What about that mosquito that create a problem for me?
If the thing about it, the mosquito is clean, but it's the person now is if they're infected. So if you bite an infected person and then it bites another person to get the blood meal,
Okay.
because they could bite more than one, and that is how the disease is transmitted. From person
I'm
to
asking
person.
the question not because I don't know, but of course the
Yes,
education is
yes.
important because it may looks like you look at a mosquito and it looks simple and
Yeah.
they're very disgusting.
Very.
Yes.
You know,
And we have we have a lot
for
of
the lack of
nuisance.
a better term, they're very disgusting. So you kill one and then another comes. But the thing is, it is important, and the message should be brought home or sent out there that it is important that we arrest the situation as much. And it goes, it extends to everybody. You cannot keep your property clean,
And your neighbor.
void of catchment areas, and then the neighbor is doing something different.
That is true.
Or you go in some areas and you see quite a number of derelict vehicles which can harbor
Which
these
could-
mosquitoes.
yeah, which could-
and
yeah.
then you're keeping your yard clean and being a good citizen, so to speak.
That is so
and,
true.
and that is what we are trying to impress here, that everyone have a role to play
Everyone,
to
yes.
ensure that we can arrest the situation and minimize the threat of mosquitoes throughout the island of Davis. You had some activities that you went through, and that takes care of the week.
That takes care of the week. But as I say, it's going to be ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we said before, it's going to be Bart Village tomorrow. On Friday, we'll be in Memorial Square in Charlestown.
Mm-hmm.
On the 13th, which is Monday, we'll be in Brownhill.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday and Wednesday of that next week, that's the 14th and 15th, we'll be at the Red Cross building in Charlestown, Chapel Street. On Thursday, we'll be in the countryside in St. James's Franklin Brown Community Center. Now, as I say, you have the exhibits. You come, you see the mosquitoes close up. You learn science about the mosquitoes, prevention and control measures. All these things will be done. We focus on the septic tanks,
Mm-hmm.
septic tank construction and design, because of the fact that we've been having these issues, especially with the Culex, and it's all around the island, especially with the newly constructed houses. Yes.
There is a jingle out there when it comes to earthquakes.
Yes.
Cloud cover, hold on. And you seem to hear this
All the
jingle
time.
every day.
Yeah, yeah.
It is the one that I can repeat, you know, because I hear it so often. Mosquitoes. What are you doing from the health promotion standpoint? In terms of putting some catchy jingles or leaflets. People hardly read much these days. So
True.
what are you doing? What are you doing to ensure that the message is being
Well,
conveyed?
we usually once Javi and the rest of the staff they have something that they want us to put out there. We usually try to get it on our Facebook page, Health Promotion Unit Nevis. We go on the various media houses and we broadcast it. In terms of reading material, there is some reading material that you can get at the Health Promotion Unit on mosquitoes, on
And
prevention.
We would have all of those every day that we have these sessions. Those will be there. You'll have information on all types of mosquitoes, the diseases, prevention measures, control, all those kind of things.
Right. And then also, and then some of the times, like when they have stuff like that health food handlers, you guys, sometimes they would touch on it, especially if it's coming up to an event, or
Yes.
if we have like if it's like we have an outbreak of something, especially if it's in a country close to us, right? And so we always try to put as much information out there, and then individuals who are, like for example, someone who is not listening tonight, or someone who's unaware, like they don't have access to Facebook and stuff, and they have a mosquito issue, they can always call the health department or the Ministry of Health, and they could speak to someone, and and Javier, people like Javier would be able to tell them. And even if they were to call our office, because of course they see my face, or we would always be able to direct them to the right people for this kind of stuff. So the information is there. We try to get it out as much as possible, and if it's not accessible to some people, they can always come by or call and find out. And I would take this opportunity to encourage individuals in the communities, even if you do not have a mosquito problem, if you're blessed enough to not have a mosquito problem, to go out to the forums that he's having and just listen. The education is really good, and they're really knowledgeable about what they're doing and stuff like this, because they could ask questions, all the questions that you would have that you don't want to call in, or you don't see them on the street. You could ask the questions there at the forum, right? Especially in areas that are a hot spot for mosquito breeding. There are certain areas on the island, mosquitoes are a real problem no matter what time of day you go there. And so individuals in those communities should always, take these opportunities.
Question. I know we just had about 15 minutes on this particular segment, but are your health inspectors out and about? In the past, you had some health inspectors who would visit pretty much everybody's premises in a particular area, particular zone, particular village. Do you have those?
We have
a
district.
person doing those things.
We have district officers for every region. Well, let's say we have four districts, and we have some junior officers up and coming. But we have, I don't want to say short staff, but we have our challenges. But we tend to do
Be
the best,
effective.
yeah, do the best we can do, because we also have a vector control unit which deals with primarily with mosquitoes, rodents, cockroaches. So they're in the field doing this, checking on these vectors and trying to eliminate them at the same time.
As
So-
you say, vector control unit, you normally would have done some fogging in the past. That is a thing of the past, or
Fogging, as I like to tell people, and I don't like to touch it, but
Last resort.
last resort. It is last resort, and the thing about fogging is that it don't just affect the mosquitoes. We tend to see stuff happening to our crops, and you're wondering, okay, how come I didn't have a good yield at this time? When we look back at it, we could say, okay, what happened is that, okay, at this point in time we probably were fogging, and when we were fogging, we kill all the bees, all the insects, all the male mosquitoes, all the insects or birds which would have pollinated your plants. And because you kill them, your yield would be low. Those are, I'm just drawing a wide reference. And these are things that happen because fogging don't just kill the mosquito. It kills the good insects that are there to pollinate your plants. That's number one. Now also you have asthmatics, and it also could be dangerous to the person who's doing the application, even though you have on your protective gear. There's no chemical is good. I don't care. Nobody tell me that they have good dosage. There is no good chemical.
so based on what you have just divulged, I would not want to see any fogging taking place in my community
Good job.
again then, huh? Is that
Okay.
that's the case?
Yeah. So there and then, we're doing an integrated approach. So we're doing different measures to control the mosquitoes. Not using chemicals, we're doing things like biological control. Take, for example, if you have a puddle in your yard, a depression which always have water, and you would find breeding there. A simple thing to do is to convert it into a pond. And you put fish in there, and those fish, that's biological control, that actually eats your larvae and your pupae. Once you have fish, and they're active fish, like larva feeding fish. Take, for example, the tilapia, the guppy. Once they see anything moving in the water, they attack it. So you would not have any mosquito problem, or you should not have any mosquito problem. And just join a reference, like make it simple suggestions.
Okay.
If you
so
had a container, same thing you do.
very good. Well, it boils down to education when it's all
Education,
said and
right.
done. I want you to take the next minute or so to send out the appeal to the general public to support the activities that you have planned for the next couple of days.
Yes, I'm in on the general public to come out to support these sessions that we're having, and the sessions. If you live in Newcastle and you want to come to Brownhill, you're not restricted. Regardless of wherever you live, you could come to the closest one or the best one that fits you best. Now the thing about it is this: mosquitoes is a problem in Nevis. Nobody will tell me that they don't have a problem in mosquitoes, because we have different species of mosquitoes. Some are pests, and some we know would carry diseases. But regardless of what, as long as you have a mosquito problem, we're willing to assist you. We just need the information. One of the things that we're doing as well, we'll have some online surveys, so it will come straight to your phone. Once we have your number, come straight to your phone. We find you don't, and it will be anonymous. So if you have a problem with once we have a location, that's all we need, just a location. So you don't have to give your name. We get the information. We know that you have a mosquito problem, and we'll be addressing the situation. So come out to these sessions, and once you come out to these sessions, you'll get the education, and we could better assist you in controlling mosquitoes in Nevis and beyond. Because as we say, mosquito is not just a problem here, because one mosquito could bite one person and infect a whole nation.
Very good. Okay, so the theme once again, small bite, big threats.
Yes.
And you said something, fight the bite, protect,
Eliminate,
eliminate
destroy mosquito breeding sites.
mosquito breeding sites.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe what we're going to do, Javier and Chevrolet, is that we'll check to see if there's anyone who wants to engage you at this point in time for a few minutes, and then we can, move on to the next phase. But time has gone by quickly. Let's see if there's someone who wants to speak with us. Good evening. You're on the mark.
Yeah, good evening, Ty. I'm Miss Mark. And
Yes, go ahead.
everybody.
We're talking about hello. We're talking about mosquitoes. Do you have a question in that regard?
Yeah, everybody have good Mother's Day. And tell Mark I miss him.
Okay.
And take care.
Thank you. All the best. Yes. Okay. We have a few minutes left with your segment. 469-1616 or 469-1700 are the numbers that you'll use to get in to On the Mark at this point in time. If you have a question, a comment, or anything you want to impart at this point in time regarding what we have just discussed, meaning Mosquito Awareness Week. As I said from the get-go, it seems like there's a week for everything these days, and even the mosquito have one for themselves. But that's all right. That's the humor to it, but
Yes.
the humor side, I would say. But of course, it is a serious issue and one that has caused many, many deaths throughout the world. We may be lucky or have been fortunate here on the island of Nevis that if there have been any deaths as a result, it would have been just one, two, a few. I don't know what the
Very
statistics are, but it's minimal, and we certainly do not want to have anyone lose their lives as a result of chikungunya, Zika, dengue, or any of those diseases that can be transmitted by mosquitoes. So the education, like I said before, it is important, and I want to encourage everyone out there listening at this point in time to make it your business to attend one of these sessions, either tomorrow at the Bath Community Center,
Friday in Charlestown.
Friday in Charlestown, that's in
Memorial
the square.
Yes.
Friday is the 10th.
Yes. And Monday in Brown Hill.
Brown Hill, that's his Maisie Bartlett Community Center.
Maisie Bartlett, yes. And Tuesday the 14th at Red Cross Building. Wednesday the 15th at Red Cross again. And Thursday at Franklin Bone Community Center.
Community
That's the
Center.
16th.
And all these sessions
Yes.
starts at
4:30.
4:30 p.m.
Yes.
So by that time, most persons would have completed
Yes.
work. Most persons, and of course, it will be quite interesting, I'm sure, to attend either of these or as many as you can, because if we are able to, each of us individually and then collectively do our part, we should be able to combat some of these difficulties we're having with the mosquitoes here on the island of Nevis. I believe someone would want to speak to you at this point in time, so let's cross over to the lines. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hey, Chai. What's your right?
No, caller, this is not Troy, but we're talking about mosquitoes. Do you have a question along those lines?
I want to tell you something.
No, we're speaking about mosquitoes, yeah?
Talking about mosquito now.
Mhm.
Tell Mark, right? Before seeing people them.
Okay, caller, we're sticking to the topic at hand this evening, yeah? Our discussions this evening will be centered around mosquitoes, and then when we come with the next segment, we'll be sticking with that particular discussion or that particular topic as well. It is an evening where we'll try to educate the general public as much as possible. There are times when you have to change up the game, change up the show, change up how things are done to ensure that we educate the general public here on the island of Nevis. So I think you have done an excellent job thus far. You said you wanted 15 minutes. I believe you got about 25 minutes. And we have some more persons holding outside.
Yes, yes.
So we'll want to go into the wrap-up phase now and have them come on to move on to the next segment. So it's all yours.
All right. Well, thanks for the general public for having me, and thanks to Honorable Alexis Jeffers saying here. As I said before, we have to fight this bite, eliminate all the breeding sites, and all I want us to do is to collaborate with environmental health, do your part, and you can be your own inspector. You don't have to wait on an inspector to come to check your premises.
That is important.
Yes.
As somebody, did you want to, say anything important?
I just want to support what Javier said, and everybody should do what they can to eliminate mosquito breeding, especially around your premises and your neighborhood. And if you have any questions or concerns about mosquito breeding in your area, do not be afraid to call the Ministry of Health and voice your concerns. As well, as far as the schedule is concerned, I think it's been also aired on community calendar, Javier?
Yes.
So the schedule is being aired on the community calendar, as well as I think we'll try to post it to our Facebook page so those can see it, as well as you can call the office as well. Not
Yes, it's on Nevis pages.
right.
It's been circulating.
Okay, very
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wish you well with your Mosquito Awareness Week, and of course, this is an ongoing process. Meaning, even after the week,
Yes, it will be.
you redouble your effort, and of course, there's some ideas that might very well come out of some of your interactions. Out
Yes,
there.
because also in the sessions there will be suggestion boxes, because
Okay.
there will be persons who may not be vocal
Mhm.
and they may want to say something. So
Sure.
we're making provisions for everyone.
Very good. So
Yes.
we wish you well, and we hope that you would. By the way, before you go, this is the first time you are celebrating Mosquito Awareness Week here on the
For the island of Nevis. Yes.
Island of Nevis.
Yes.
Okay, but there's always a first.
Yes.
And sometimes the first annually you don't see the second or hear about the third. So let's not make it.
No, this is not going to
a
be.
case where we hear about this first and the next year we don't hear anything. And then of course, out of this week's activity, you can always plan
Yes, for
accordingly
next
for
yes,
next
for
year.
next year. Yes,
This
definitely.
time. I want to
Yes.
thank you for coming, Javier, and Chevrolet. I want to thank you for coming as well.
Thank you.
And indeed, it was our pleasure helping you this evening to disseminate the information that you wanted to have disseminated. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to On the Mark, and of course, I'm your host for this evening, Alexis Jeffers, sitting in for the Honorable Mark Brantley, who is not with us this evening. But of course, one thing I can tell you is that when the Honorable Mark Brantley is not here, there's always someone who is willing to come by and fill the hot seat, so to speak, for him. And I'm happy to be here this evening. Of course, we're here until 10 p.m. this evening. We had persons from the Ministry of Health, that is Environmental Health, and the Health Promotion Unit, that is, who were just with us. And now we're going to have a second segment here this evening where we'll be talking agriculture. But before we go into that, let me just express my appreciation and also congratulations to the nurses here on the island of Nevis who are celebrating Nurses Week. I believe it is being celebrated throughout the world, so I want to commend all nurses throughout the world. But since I'm here on Nevis and I'm sticking local, I want to commend and congratulate all of the nurses who are currently still active nurses, those who have just retired, and those who have retired a long time ago who still do have that nursing instinct in them. I want to congratulate all of you and thank you for your hard work and dedication over the years to the nursing profession, because you certainly would have done things here on the island to save lives and to make some of our lives and livelihood right here on the island of Nevis. So I want to commend you for this week, and hopefully, I heard the nurses on the radio station, your VON radio station this morning, during the morning inspiration program. And you know, they always sound upbeat and lively. And you know, you listen to the nurses and it sounds like they're enjoying what they're doing. and they're very proud when this time comes around. Not only this time, but every time they get a chance to be on Von Radio, they're here and they're always active in our communities. So I want to say kudos to you, nurses, and hopefully your week continues to go well. All of the activities that have gone before, hopefully they were successful, and those upcoming would be equally as successful and even better. But I want to thank you on behalf of myself, the Davis Island Administration. I believe the Minister of Health, the Honorable Hazel Brandy William, would have actually had an address early in the week to mark the start of Nurses Week, and of course she might have imparted her commendation as well too. So I wish everyone well. I just had to mention that because I couldn't go this evening without actually paying homage to our nurses, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, I did say we were going to have a second segment, and of course this evening we want to stick with the topics and the issues that we're discussing. So of course, persons who would want to call in, I want you to stick to the topic at hand. We are speaking agriculture in the second segment this evening. It's just about quarter to 9, and we're here until 10 p.m. So we'll be discussing agriculture from now until 10 p.m. Now, of course, many would hear agriculture and they say, "Oh, I am going to bed." Listen, you don't want to sign off or tune out at this point in time. This is an important sector, and it is a sector that I do believe this island cannot do without agriculture or persons being involved in agriculture. We all have to eat. We all have to survive, and eating is a part of survival. So we want you to stay tuned. Now, we are currently celebrating Agriculture Awareness Month, and we would have started this particular month about 6 years ago. So we are celebrating our 7th hosting of this particular month of activities. Remember, I just said there are times you hear about the first annual, you don't hear about the second, the third, or the fourth. Well, I want to say we have gone beyond the second, the third, and the fourth, and we have now into our 7th hosting of Agriculture Awareness Month. And it's being held under the theme, Think Climate Smart, for food and nutrition security and sustainability. And as I said sometime earlier, I believe it was on Sunday, even though the theme sounds sophisticated and have some buzzword, and it sounds like a theme from maybe that the United Nations might probably use, locally we can come up with our own themes as well. And we have come up with the theme, but I want to assure you that it is not as sophisticated or as cliche as you might think. Simply put, what we are saying that we have to change our way of thinking and our way of doing things to combat some of the difficulties we are now facing with climatic changes. And indeed, if we are to feed ourselves going into the future, we have to change our game, so to speak. We have to come with different agricultural practices and practices that will be done in a way to sustain us and to ensure that we are able to feed ourselves well into the future. I've always said, and I continue to say, if, for example, tropical doesn't come for a week, there should be no hungry mouth here on the island of Nevis. There should be no one on the island of Nevis who would be caught in a position where they cannot feed themselves. Because pretty much everyone has a backyard. And if you have a backyard and you plant just a couple, as the old people would say, a couple holes of yam or holes of potato, I'm sure you'll be able to feed yourself for a couple of weeks as a result of that. But of course, we are imparting some of the things that we're imparting to you as a general public, because we do believe that we have the capacity to do all of the things that are necessary to ensure we can survive here on the island of Nevis. Just quickly though, before I introduce the team that we have here, and it's a high-powered team, based on what I see here around the table. You'll see them shortly, but we have some of the best from the Department of Agriculture and also from the Community Affairs Department as well. We have a high-powered team here. But what we are having for the rest of the month, I'll go through that quickly. We're here this evening, of course. It was not on the calendar of activities, but we decided to have this discussion this evening. Yesterday, there was one of the highlights of our month of activities, and it was a new initiation where we had the initiation of this project to plant 500 fruit trees throughout the island of Nevis over the next couple of weeks or throughout the rest of this month. We are hoping that at least 500 households here on the island of Nevis, or properties here on the island of Nevis, owners of properties here on the island of Nevis, will get at least a fruit tree to plant in their backyard. We are going to be concentrating as well on those affordable income housing development as well, because those areas in most cases are pretty sparse in terms of trees. And we know the importance of trees, not only fruit trees, but also any tree. As a matter of fact, simply put, we breathe out carbon dioxide, and the trees absorb that, and they then produce oxygen. So we inhale oxygen. So it's a cycle. So every time you see a tree, you have to understand the importance of a tree to our very survival here on the island of Nevis or throughout the world. Trees play an important part in our overall development. But moving on Thursday, we would have introduced last Thursday Eat Local Day at various restaurants here on the island of Nevis. There are a few restaurants who would have come on board, and we are hoping that even though your name or your restaurant name doesn't appear on the calendar of activities, that you would join in as well and even publicize to the general public that you're having Eat Local Day on Thursdays, every Thursday for this particular month. I believe tomorrow, Thursday, we are at Ubrenta's. They have come on board and they're offering, I want to say, strictly local items on their menu for tomorrow. Or, as much as possible, they'll be providing you with a local dish. Locally produced products will be on that plate. So that's tomorrow for the luncheon period. And of course, I will say that they have gone a step further in ensuring that the price is reasonable. They're saying it's $25 or less. Well, I say less because I would love for them to sell it for less. But it's at least $25, yeah? And on Friday, we have our usual sale of fresh produce down there at the public market. And that starts at 8 a.m. What am I saying? 8 a.m. And of course, some of the fresh products that you'll find are tomatoes, beets, carrots, cucumbers, onions, sweet potato, green bananas, green plantain, thyme, celery, squash. You hear the amount of products, all local. That is like a whole menu for the entire week at home. If you were to buy all those products, tomatoes, beets, carrots, cucumbers, onions, sweet potato, green bananas, green plantain, thyme, celery, and squash. And the amazing thing is that all of these were grown locally, produced locally. And of course, the prices are good too. Very good prices. When we have a sale, they're discounted up to 15 to 20%, I believe. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is phenomenal. So I want persons to go down to the public market on Friday. Friday is the 10th of May, and patronize the Department of Agriculture down there who put on the sale. I know our onions are always in great demand. We do have some available still, so local onions will be available down there as well. So all those will be available at the public market. Moving along, of course, next Thursday, the 16th, we'll have Eat Local Day as well for lunch. We're going up to Mem's Pizzeria. And I put on Pizzeria because that is her official name in terms of the official name of her establishment. But Mem's have guaranteed that she'll be producing strictly local dishes for that day. So you can go on up and get your local dishes, steamed vegetables and fish, steamed vegetables and some mutton from the abattoir. So I know Mem's normally patronize both the abattoir and the agro-processing unit for most of our products. I've been there, I've sat there when she's sending her handy guy down to the abattoir to buy her stuff, so I know she does. Mem's, good evening and thanks for your patronage over the years. And then next Friday, the 17th of May, we're going down to the New River Estate to support the New River Farmers Cooperative with their open day. I believe this is the fifth hosting? Fifth hosting, yeah. They have done a phenomenal job down there. And let me tell you why I'm proud of the New River Farmers Cooperative. They have been doing a phenomenal job down there. It is what we call an NGO. And why we encourage NGOs is because some of the money is available out there in support of agriculture or any other project or any other area that you want to have work done here on the island of Nevis to build our communities. Those monies are not available to government. And a lot of monies are available out there. But what most of these agencies that provide these grant funds or seed funds, whatever you want to call it, they will only give it to NGOs, non-government organizations, like the New River Farmers Cooperatives, like the Indian Castle Fisher Folks or the Newcastle Bay Foundation or any other cooperative here on the island of Nevis. There are funds available out there. You don't have to rely on government for all of your financial support, because government have very limited resources. Sometimes you start the year with a budget, and by the time it's all said and done, your budget is busted in many ways and you can't find the money. And that is why we're encouraging communities to start these particular groups so that they can tap into all of the funds that are available out there. And I'm taking up some of the time that we should have, but you know, when it comes to on the mark, sometimes you change up your game and you talk a lot. But I'll get back to the program of activities as we go. So I see you're itching to go, the guys who are here with me. So I'm going to put a pause on what else I have to say and introduce the team here with me this evening. I said it was a high-powered team and a team that I believe will have some robust discussions with this evening. I want to start on my immediate left and introduce, first of all, I start on the right. We're going anti-clockwise then. I thought we go clockwise. Well, let me start with the Director of Community Affairs, Mrs. Janet Maloney. Good evening, Janet. I'll give you a chance to say something to introduce yourself this evening.
Good evening, radio listeners, and I'm here with the team from the Ministry of Agriculture and by extension the department. We would have had a good relationship over the years where we work together to celebrate community development with a pork festival and also Community Development Day. So we are here tonight to talk more about that. Thanks.
Okay, then we have the Chief Extension Officer, Mr. Steve Reed.
Yes, good evening to everyone out there in Radio Land. I'm here once again pushing for further development of agriculture, encouraging everyone out there to take part in agriculture, whatever little that they can do, whether it's in their backyard or, you know, doing large-scale farming, fishers. So I'm hoping that everyone is tuning tonight and hoping that whatever we discuss here tonight would have some positive effect on what they do.
Okay, very good. And then Randy Elliott, the Director of Agriculture, good evening.
Good evening, Radio Land. Good evening to everyone who is listening and to everyone who is here this evening. As we continue to celebrate our month of activities, we're just here this evening to share what we are doing in agriculture here in the island of Nevis, and we continue to plead to the general public to support our local farmers. We continue with our slogan, eat local, buy local.
Okay, good. And of course, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry and Department of Agriculture.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Huey Sargent, and it's a pleasure to be here to lend support to this great initiative. It's been going for 7 years now, and I've just been around for 2. But then the inspiration is great so far, and I'm more than motivated to push the agenda.
Okay, good. Well, and let me apologize for jumping way ahead of where I should have been at the point in time you came in, but sometimes we get carried away. But let me start with Janet, because she was talking about the pork festival, which has now morphed into a meat fest. So let us hear the role and the role you play, Janet, in that particular event, and the date, because you must know the date as well, yeah.
Okay, Community Development Day will be celebrated on the 31st of May, which is the last Friday of the month. And we discovered by default that agriculture also have their pork fest on the same day. So I think, as Mr. Elliott put it, Randy put it, that we were stealing from distracting person from each other, where some would go to the pork fest and some will come to us. So we decide, you know what, let everybody come one place and then we just collaborate and have one event. And interestingly enough, we are also joined by the Rastafarian One Love Rastafari movement, who will also be celebrating the day with us and joining in with the Pork Festival and also Community Development Day. Someone will question how the two go together.
Exactly.
It's the community.
We are better together. We are better together. That should be the theme on the tagline. We're better together.
It shows how far we have come and how much the community willing to work with each other. We have agriculture, the Rastafari movement, and community development collaborating right there at the DRR Walwyn Square on Friday the 31st of May for the Pork Festival and that's the Community Development Day. Well, I'm here more to promote. I'm joining in with agriculture to promote the local dishes, and last year, over the past 6 years, Randy, I think we would have been promoting that, and we would have had some of the traditional cuisine like cassava moussa and cornmeal and fish and coconut dumpling. And last year the seniors had a booth there where they were selling the provision, and also like the one time we even had dove dung pork. And
Dove pork. You said dove.
The old time days, the old time days, the old time days.
the dung pork
Dove pork.
and cornfish, right? So we worked well together, and I'm just here by extension to say the next day we normally have we would have introduced a gospel explosion starting last year. Last year was the first, and it was on the same night. So in the afternoon, the guest artist should be there in town as a part of the whole. After you would have, I think you all are gonna have smoothie, so you can come in and have your smoothie and sit around or stand around, look on to see what is happening. And the artist Positive and DJ Nicholas will be right there in Charlestown on Friday afternoon, as we culminate to meet and greet with the audience or persons who want to meet them, seeing that they will be having a concert next on Saturday, 1st of June.
Yeah. Okay. I know it's some time away. The 31st is a couple of weeks away, but it's important to start to get the general public be made aware as to what is to come, because part of the difficulty we have on Nevis is that we wait too late for certain things, and by the time you get to that point, persons don't know, and then the turnout is not what we would like. So I'm happy that you have come to even talk about something that far ahead, so there'll be more time to get to that, I'm sure.
Okay.
But we are what we eat, Randy. You heard Janet talk about kusad and musa and that type of thing that we would have grown up on. I don't know if you're old enough, but your mom must have cooked some, prepared some kusad and musa.
Yeah, she have. Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did.
Cassava bread and that kind of thing. But we are what we eat, and you may want to talk to that particular thinking, or it is something that we embrace at agriculture as well. And you hear about all of these diseases, and it all stems from what we eat or what we consume. So maybe you'd want to speak more about the eating local and building that tradition and that type of thinking in our people.
As a department, we continue to encourage the general public to support the local farmers. It is not regularly one is able to see exactly where the food comes from. One is able to see the conditions under which the food is grown. One is not able to see the hands actually that nurtured their food from start to where it reaches to the market. A number of times our people, sometimes we rush after the imported food, but we don't know the history behind those food. We here in Nevis, we can boast in terms of the quality of the food that we produce. We have our farmers, they're very supportive of the department, they're very caring. And what we grow here, we try to encourage our farmers to select the best in terms of not GM products, but the best, some hybrids and open pollinated varieties, because we still want to ensure that although we are pushing local, our population have safe food to eat within the same breath. We not just focus on the vegetables like the tomatoes and so forth. We also encourage our farmers to get into fruit trees. And this month of activities in terms of the planting of the 500 plants, we are hoping that our householders could take upon the opportunity to come to the department. We had an influx of persons today. We even have had maybe a number of teachers from the CSS school actually came into there to look for plants for their households. So we do believe that this program is going quite well. In growing up, I know persons will always say, an apple a day keep the doctor away. But we do believe that a mango a day could actually give you 10 years on your life, or a sugar apple, or a local avocado, or even a pomegranate could do such. So we look outside of the scope in terms of not just producing the tomatoes and so forth, but also fruits. So our people could have that. We also now pushing into more solid foods also. Over the years, we would have had some challenges as it relates to our ground provision. And a number of our persons, yes, we are consuming a lot of what you call rice and macaroni and those sort of things. And we're now encouraging our persons to eat the cassava. It is here, it is local. You could get it in terms of the raw product. You could get it as a meal. You could get it within the flour stage, or you could even get it at the processing plant in the state of a bread. Right? And so we encourage our people to consume that. We have also embarked on a drive in terms of establishing planting and bananas around the island. And we, as I said, we want our people to eat local. And you don't necessarily have to be a farmer to get into these crops. Persons with a small plot of land, even 5,000 square feet of land, even planting 2 banana trees, it goes a long way. It could go in terms of not just food for you, but some additional source of income for your household also. So the public who is listening, we just encourage you to eat local, support local.
And the point of these 500 trees, I believe you made the point yesterday that you'll be keeping some data and referring to those data at some point in time to see, the progress of.
Yes.
So you want to speak to that as well.
Well, I know sometimes when persons hear free, they're rushing and just collect. And sometimes when you look at some programs, yes, you do distributions, but there's no data to track. For this specific program, we want to be able to track where the plants are going. So you come at the department, we register your name, we register the location where you intend to put the plant, we take a contact number for you or email address. So even not just following up, but in case of anything going forward in terms of any new initiative, we could contact these persons. Within a year, 2 years, we could always go back and check with these persons to make sure that the plant is growing. Even if they're facing difficulties, we have a well-qualified extension team that could come out, look to see what's going on with these plants and so forth, just to give support to you.
Sure. Okay, good. Steve, Chief Extension Officer, and I want to congratulate you. What am I saying? I want to congratulate you in your new role, so to speak, because you've always been at the marketing division and have done a phenomenal job there. And now you're in a new role. Call it a much bigger, a much more demanding role, I must say. And you have gone out there and interacted with farmers, and you may want to speak to the experiences thus far. And what are some of the encouraging signs, and even touch on some difficulties that we can look at this evening and perhaps generate some discussions as well too.
Yes, good evening again. Well, so far it has been a very new experience, so to speak, in this capacity. I have worked in extension before when I had first returned from school. But as Mr. Elliott was talking about eating local, and local food have the perception to be safe. All right. We at the department have had numerous complaints from farmers of this thing they call predial. And that's a major issue out there right now.
Well, before you go on, you make it sound sophisticated. Just like
Okay.
people are stealing
Stealing, all right?
produce that they didn't plant.
Plant, yes.
Okay.
And the department have taken some steps to try and mitigate this. However, I will say certain things to the general public now to encourage them to purchase from reputable farmers. Let me draw a scenario. Say I'm a farmer and my crop is infested with worms and I spray with pesticide. And then someone comes along and steal my crops and then sell it. Come to you, you buy it on the street. It normally would be $5 a pound. They offer you for $3 and you think you're getting a deal. You find out that you either get stomach poisoning, you're getting cancer and all kind of stuff because of someone going against the good book, thou shalt not steal. And this doesn't only happen with crops, it happens with livestock.
Sure.
You know, antibiotics and worm medicine, and people move with it, you know. And so we have pushed to get the farmers registered so that when you're purchasing from a farmer, they can provide this ID to show that they are reputable. They have been trained by the extension staff so that when you're eating local, you're eating healthy. I mean, Mr. Minister, have you ever wondered? I mean, I just buy jelly on the side of the road. And a lot of times the guy is selling me the jelly. And then I have no jelly tree. And the thing about it is that we know we have been affected by this lethal yellowing. And one of the antidotes or treatment is to drill a hole in the trunk and put in a highly concentration of antibiotics. But if people just go around harvesting things that are not their own, they would know, you know? So I'm appealing.
So they would know, but they wouldn't care.
They wouldn't care. And we see it in animals, we see it in crops, and well, the greed is there in the ocean where you know, the traditional fishermen can say water dark. And then you see some fishermen still having, getting fish, and you're wondering, what's going on there? Until, I don't know if you ever got a fish poison, but some people lose teeth, tooth here, you know. So we have to be aware of who we are purchasing from. And all of us in Nevis know who are the reputable farmers. But we are giving them IDs, so when you're buying, you know you're getting quality stuff. You see, these farmers eat the food themselves. They carry it to church, harvest, the donation, they feed it to the kids, the whole family. So you're sure it's safe. Our extension staff visit every week, go on people farm and so forth. We even have a lab
Yes, yes.
that tests for chemical residue and any impurities of such sort. But when people break the law or do not obey by the good book, we end up in a bad place. So I'm just appealing to the general public now to support our farmers.
And you make some valid points there, Steve, because we normally think that what we're getting from overseas, because it comes from America, it comes from Brazil, it comes from Mexico, might be cheaper, but there's a slogan or thinking out there that good things ain't cheap and cheap things ain't good. But I mean, if you live on that premise and you have those things in your head, you would always want to think local first, because yes, we are not always the cheapest, because of course there are certain economic factors that we have to consider here. Most things that we put into our production are imported anyway, in terms of if you have to use some small dosage of fertilizer or whatever the case might be. But indeed, our products, even bananas, you know, we talk about the increase in the production of bananas here on the island of Nevis. And if you were to put our bananas on the shelf, alongside some of the Dole or the Chiquita or even those from Dominica, and look at the shelf life of all of those bananas, ours would probably stay on the shelf a lot longer and would not develop those spots that you see developing after a day. You know, so even the shelf life of our local products are much longer than the imported. But well, the permanent secretary has been here sitting down. I mean, you know, your job is made easier when these two guys
course,
are
of
doing
course.
a phenomenal job, right? So you just have to make sure and guide accordingly. But Huey, you've been the permanent secretary in the Ministry and Department of Agriculture for the last 2 years, I believe.
Just about 2 years.
Just
yeah.
about 2 years, and you came along after the previous permanent secretary. Well, he's now Minister Eric Evelyn, who would have been there just prior to you. But you came in, and of course, you met a situation where you had to learn as you go. What do you say about your exploits so far? What can you say in terms of agriculture and how you've embraced your new role?
Well, I actually started my my working career in agriculture.
Okay.
So I started back in late 90s, and then I left and went off to do another career, and then I'm now back,
Okay.
and it's phenomenal. I've always enjoyed agriculture. I used to tell people it is because of agriculture that I knew Nevis. You have to go around. You have to meet farmers on their farms, and they help you. And I learned a lot from the farmers that I met, and indeed they are there and they continue even after. It's been a little while that I've been there, but even after, and you see them and they still ply their trade, and they are very proud people. I like to highlight Emmantine, my good friend Emmantine and Billy Thompson. I like to highlight them because they have literally their only income is from agriculture, whether it be on the livestock or the crop side. They have been farmers and they have supported their families, sent children to university. They have, and you know of their going to St. Croix and winning for 10 consecutive years now. The off-island competition and not placing #1, and that is not easy. And you know they are proud people, and they might seem a little rough and tough when you talk to them.
Maybe
But then-
that's what work for them.
but they are good people, and this is just one example because we have quite a number of farmers on the island, and
You can name some,
we have Donald Dole Daniel, we have Mansa Tyson, we have Banky. Mackie Trust. I wasn't gonna go by Mackie Trust just yet because Mackie is a new generation of farmer because he's using greenhouse technology. He's exploring a lot of what we want to teach in terms of climate change and embracing certain practices that really combat climate change. And as we look at our theme, think climate smart, and to farm and produce in a greenhouse gives you the opportunity to produce certain crops all year round because you're able to control a little more the climate that the crops are produced in. Working in a greenhouse, you have to monitor your crops a lot closer, but then you also have the opportunity to give less in terms of fertilizer, less in terms of spraying. So you do not have to spray as much, but then you have to monitor a lot closer. And he is a really great example of where we want young people to go. I used to tell these guys, work smarter and not harder. And we have the greenhouse technology. We have greenhouse at Prospect. And one of the things that I'm very proud of in terms of the greenhouse is cabbage, the ability to produce cabbage. Because traditionally, you know that cabbage grows very well in the shorter days of the year. So it's around Christmas and November and that time. But in the greenhouse at Prospect, I've seen Mr. Elliott and his team there. They're producing cabbage all year round.
Yes.
And that pleases me greatly because every time I go into these supermarkets, one of the things that are always there is cabbage. And I know because we only were producing cabbage the latter part of the year. People want cabbage to eat every day. And and all of that cabbage in the supermarkets are important. And if we can produce it here in a greenhouse condition, I mean, we imagine how much money we're saving and we're keeping here on the island of Nevis.
Well, I mentioned the data before, and perhaps these are some of the things that we have to start concentrating on to identify the crops that we need to spend more time on, so as to ensure that we are importing less. Tomatoes, we have done a phenomenal job. Watermelon, for example, we have done a good job, an excellent job. Pumpkin, those kind of crops we have done a real good job on. But you're mentioning cabbages now. We have done some work in the greenhouse up there at Prospect with colored peppers.
Yeah.
So we understand, and you know how expensive the imported
Yes.
ones are, almost $13-14 a pound. And if we're able to increase the production of some of these particular crops, then of course you can make it easier for households to access these products in terms of the
And
cost.
to bring down the cost as
And to
well.
bring down the cost, yes. But you know, you were mentioning some names in terms of farmers. We know we cannot identify every single farmer, but at least you want to recognize some more. Meaning, as you go around the island, you mentioned Daniel, you mentioned, you went on to
Mackie,
but as
there's
you-
Mike
as you go
Brown.
around,
There's
you
Mike.
mentioned-
There's Mike Brown. There is Merla. I know a lot of them by
And
the
Merla
first.
is a part of the
New-
New River Farmers. She's the president
Yes,
of the New River Farmers Cooperative. And then you have the Five Fields.
the 5 fields. You have Omel.
Omel, yes.
Omel is. I mean, the other day she was at the office and she's making it. I need more land. I need more land because she's like her land is always full and she wants more space. So I like to hear farmers
So
like that.
Omel and Jama works together. That's
No.
the
Is in the same they're in the same lots and you know we would have fenced last year it was
2 years ago.
2 years ago we would have fenced that block
almost 13 acres.
13 acres.
yeah
yes.
over in New River and they are quite there are some farmers we have another farmer as well Ravi and he's the watermelon king.
Ravi, you say Ravi, but I
Well,
think you're
size.
talking about size.
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 Yes.
Size, you know.
Size.
You have to go by the names that people would know these farmers by because.
Okay,
when-
size, but then
That is the passport name.
Okay.
But the street name is
size. But then you know size because size is the watermelon, and then cane juice in town. If right there by Volin, right in front of
Yes,
community development, cane juice. I mean, some of the most healthy juice you can drink. I did the research myself, and it is. A bottle a day is good enough for you. I mean, you hear about these energy drinks. I mean, that you have a bottle of that a day, and despite the taste, it does not spike your blood sugar or anything. It tastes sweet, but it's actually not sweet.
well, it's natural sugar, and the body will
Yeah.
break it down much faster. than
So
all
it's
these,
something good. They even recommend it for diabetics and so on. So we have Corina and Jama. And these are farmers that have been there and they've toiled for a really very long time. And they produce quality food. Randy and Steve spoke about supporting local farmers. They go in there day in and day out and produce what we call good local food. You know where it's coming from. And one of the strange things, we have these kiosks, well, I call them kiosks, these little pop-up shops, not shops, but little small,
provision stands.
yes, these stands around the island.
Yeah.
Popular.
And they're becoming quite popular. And strangely enough, we local Nivisians seem to have a mentality, they prefer to go to a supermarket. But when I look at these, I'll call them kiosks, is a nice word for your stand. A lot of persons who we consider foreigners and lighter skin color people, they tend to patronize these stands a lot more than our local people.
It's convenience.
Convenience one, but they also know.
Local is better.
They know local is better. But our locals seem to prefer to go into a supermarket and buy an orange or a tangerine that is very, very orange sometimes it's 6 and 7 months old by the time we pick it up, and then you cut it, you can't even get any juice out of it. But then we're not eating the watermelon, we're not eating the bananas and stuff that's grown locally. I mean, sometimes I look at our children, and the children prefer, like, I want to have a grape instead of a tamon or a cherries or something that is grown locally. We have to really do some education or re-education, especially of our children, because they seem to think fruits really come from supermarkets, and we need to correct that.
But the key word in your discourse just now is that we have to educate our people, and that is why, forums like this and we at the Ministry and Department of Agriculture have to continue the dialogue with the general public. But Randy, tell us some of the areas that are working well for us here and there, whether in crop, livestock, even in the poultry industry. We have had phenomenal results there as well too. So you as the director would have interacted with almost everybody on the island up to this point in time. So let us know what's working well.
Currently on the island, let me hit back on the crop so far. As I spoke before, you would have highlighted some crops that we are doing quite well with, the tomatoes, the melons, and so forth, that we're doing quite well with in terms of...
And lettuce.
Yes. And able to meet the domestic demand. Currently, we are working with our farmers because one of the things that we would have observed in terms of analyzing our data, although we meet our targets, it is not spread throughout the year. And we are currently working with our farmers to ensure that this production is spread throughout the year to avoid gluts in particular months and scarcity in others. But our farmers have the capability of producing them. For instance, like now, which is not the norm. This is May, which is not the norm. We have an abundance of tomatoes on the island, which is not the norm. Very good quality. We have a number of farmers with tomatoes, as I mentioned, Doe Daniel, Mark Dalton, just to name two, who have an abundance of tomatoes right now. When we look at our poultry industry, and we could call it a poultry industry now, as it relates to eggs, we can say that the work done before, and I must say kudos to Mr. Amri, the former director, who would have worked hard with the eggs in terms of ensuring that Nevis is self-sufficient in eggs. We have a number of farmers. We have at least 5 major players in terms of the egg production that have the market well covered. We have some small farmers coming up. Our team is currently working with them to bring them up to standard in terms of standardizing the quality of what is produced. We have very good support from the supply office in terms of quality feed source from the supply office for these farmers. So as it relates to egg, we could basically guarantee that all the eggs that you consume from January 15th to November 15th, local eggs. Going after that, we have a spike in terms of the demand because it's Christmas season, and persons wish to bake and so forth. So during this time, you might see some eggs coming from St. Kitts, or you might see 1 or 2 imported eggs. But again, the system, it works because as it relates to the importation of eggs, is the producers actually come together and give sanction in terms of, okay, yes, we could bring in eggs. This is the amount of eggs that will come in during this time.
But you're failing to register something here. You must be a bona fide poultry farmer to get a license to import eggs.
Yes,
That
yes.
is the case, right?
Must be.
And that is something that a policy we adopted a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Which certainly that would have translated into what we're seeing now, where a person like Gerald, for example, he'd probably have one of the largest farms on the island, I believe.
Yes.
Over in the river you have the larger farms over there, I believe. Gerald is one such farmer who have gone into it in a big way. And I am happy that we can sit here this evening and say that we have certainly done a few things at the Department of Agriculture to make sure that particular sector or industry is protected to the point where we can be self-sufficient. So at least we can say there is something, along with the other things that we have talked about, that we have been able to to work on to ensure that we become self-sufficient in that area. And you must be commended. I mean, the department has to be commended as a result, because I can recall back in 2013, persons who knew nothing about poultry farming were importing eggs and selling at far lower prices than what the actual farmer was getting for their eggs. So it means they were getting the sales, but the farmers were struggling and couldn't meet the what should I say, couldn't really find the monies to buy the feed and do what is necessary to keep the farm going. So I want to say that even the poultry farmers should call in this evening and say thank you, because I believe we would have done something phenomenal in that regard. But you were talking about some other stuff.
Yes, the one of the areas that we are making very good strive in, and we're not at the maximum to where we would like to be yet, but our abattoir division and a number of persons who in terms of everything that we discuss as it relates to agriculture, we always highlight the abattoir division, and we can proudly say, in terms of in all reports, it's probably one of the best abattoirs within the entire region or within the OECS. Just the other day, we had some visitors looking at our abattoir to see what can they do to improve the abattoir within another OECS territory based on the Nevis model. At our abattoir, it is just not a slaughtering house, but we also do meat processing. It was in January when we did our outline, the agenda for 2019, and we actually going through the data. It was amazing to see actually, when we actually did the count, 22 different products actually coming out of the abattoir. As I said, we're still not able to meet the full demand, but we're making some roles in terms of making progress. Our pork producers, we did have some challenges in terms of the fresh pork moving, and we had some competition coming in from the Brazilian market, some cheap pork coming from the Brazilian market. We continue to encourage the public to support the local, because you know where the pig's coming from here in Nevis. But from the abattoir point of view, and I must say kudos to Mr. Griffin and his team there at the abattoir, that we not just producing the pork now in its raw form, but we actually get into processed stuff in terms of pork sausages, breakfast sausages and so forth. And is just this week, the abattoir is now working on a new seasoned product where it's a combination. It's seasoned with our local onions, seasoned with our local thyme from our greenhouse, our local celery from our greenhouse, and our local peppers from our greenhouse. So we try our best to go as much local as possible. The abattoir is open. Persons could come in, get the products from the abattoir. As I said, 22 different products. Maybe just this afternoon I was speaking to Griffin, and he would have indicated that for the meat festival, he's just not coming with raw meat. So we expect persons to come to wine and dine, because there will be the grill, there will be the sliced smoked hams and so forth there also. Our agro-processing unit, it is one that is not as fully developed as we like, but it's still within the development stage. And we would have done quite a bit of stuff in terms of the agro-processing unit, where now we have at least 5 different type of breads on the market, where you have the plantain bread, the cassava bread, the cassava and plantain bread, the pumpkin bread, the moringa bread, the pumpkin with pumpkin seed bread, and a combination of all the flour within the bread. And again, these breads will be available at the meat festival. So you could go by the agro-processing unit, you take your bread from there, and you go by the abattoir, and you get a piece of grilled stuff or a slice of smoked ham or something to put within the bread. We continue to push our pulps. we work very closely with people out in the public where persons bring in tamarind, persons bring in soursop, and we do pay them for that. So it's a means of extended employment to the people of Nevis also. So we just do what we have to do to ensure that we're able to touch the lives of every Nevisian, whether it's some form of extended employment or add to some form of food security to our people. But we continue to work. We are now doing some work as it relates to the livestock sector, small ruminants. We're working closely with a group in the Cherry Garden area where we want to now move from that free range of roaming animals and now start to venture into semi-intensive. So that is something that we're working very closely with in the Prospect area, and we're hoping that farmers around the island would come on board with that also.
Okay, one of the things Mr. Elliott said there in terms of the livestock, I attended a livestock meeting, I think one of my first livestock meetings last year, and Mr. Griffin made a presentation or an interjection in terms of the quality of the meats. And he was saying, and it stuck with me, that we have animals, farmers have animals, just open the pen in the morning, animals walk up and down all day. By the time you're ready to slaughter that animal and get meat, the meat is tough. And when you have your semi-intensive or your intensive operation, you get nice succulent meat. So that's the difference. So farmers need to understand that, you know, you have to provide a better quality product to the people of Nevis and whoever you want to sell it to. And I also like that we're working with this group in Cherry Gardens, because too many of our farmers seem to still farm as a hobby, and we're trying to get this business approach that, you know, you produce your whether it be livestock or crops, but you produce at a particular quality, because we import a lot of food, and Mr. Elliott alluded to it and Mr. Reed alluded to it earlier. The quality is questionable. We don't know. We might think that we're just because it's called a vegetable and it's on the supermarket shelf, it might not be safe. You don't know that it is safe. But when you're coming from when you know it comes from Donald Daniels farm, you know where it comes from. So if you have an issue with that tomato, and even if you're just buying it because of the taste, when I bite into a tomato, I know whether it's grown on Nevis or it's imported.
Sure.
Because that quality that is produced here on Nevis, can't compromise that.
There's something that I'm happy about. You mentioned you call them kiosks, but I call them these provision stands. As simple as it looks, there's a connection being made between the farm and the stand and the consumer.
Yes.
Meaning, for example, farmer A produces tomatoes, for example. Chances are they may get them sold at a hotel or maybe at a supermarket, for example. But in this case, with these stands popping up throughout the island, some may have their
own
different opinion on it. But of course, Donald, for example, is guaranteed to get most of his tomatoes off his hands without even storing them, because he can go down the road to Merlin now has a stand that she produces as well, or whomever else around the island. There can be a supplier to that particular person. So the sale part of it, the farmer don't have to worry about, because they know they take it down to Randy's stall, and Randy is the one who is going to off-sell. They get their money, and Randy's job then is to collect on his investment. And I believe that is a good linkage to make it easy, or much easier, for consumers to access food. Because of course, we know Charlestown is congested, and perhaps our people, as you said before, a lot of our people go into the supermarket, but I see the trend changing
Yes.
a lot. Yeah, because I've left Newcastle and gone over to New River, for example, or go to the nearest provision stand to buy. I don't come into Charleston to buy anything. So at least the trend is changing, and as time change, people change, the environment change, and of course, our habits do change over time. And I see that change as a welcome change.
And as you speak about that, I see Miss Malone, Mrs.
She
Maloney
just
want to
said
jump.
something.
But and one of the activities that we are having for Agriculture Awareness Month is the farmers market. This is a concept that I guess that is along that similar line. You're able to connect the farmer with the consumer. No middleman or middlewoman, or you're getting farm fresh produce, and that is something that we want to encourage. I mean, what we're doing is going to be an expansion of the provision stand, but then we're having it all in one place, and this is slated for the 24th, Friday the 24th, and we still have some decisions to make on that, because we're having a little debate internally. I'm pushing for an evening or night market, and the traditionalists in the department are pushing for a morning market. So we'll when we get a little bit closer, we'll be able to make a better decision. But that is something that we're really hoping that we can do it monthly after that, so that we can definitely connect the farmers and the consumers.
Yes, and something that Mr. Elliott might have missed, we noticed that most of the school feeding programs in the school now have greenhouse attached, and in the past there had always been the problem where kids are not consuming enough vegetables, and the feedback that we are getting from the school is that when the kids go into the greenhouse and grow it, they're anxious to eat it.
Sure.
And now they're going home and asking the parents to buy it or even to start gardens at home. So I know Mr. Elliott had worked with quite a number of schools to get greenhouse up and running. And you know that they're successful because they're continuing. And the food bill has gone down, and they're eating a much more nutritious and balanced
And
diet.
from the macaroni and the rice, macaroni and cheese.
You know, I mean, you can still have your pizza, you know, but with our local stuff in it.
Sure.
Yes, because we produce quite a lot of the things, ingredients at the abattoir.
For the-
So you can definitely get your ground beef on your pizza if you want.
Okay, then.
Yes.
Janet, you
Yes,
wanted
I've
to
been
make
itching to ask this. I know I must commend the agriculture department for the great work that you all have been doing, and I must say over the years, because of the agriculture fair, backyard gardening would have also increased, and there's a major, even I alone have a backyard garden, and most of the plants come from the agriculture fair, so thank you all for that. But I always have this discussion with Mr. Elliott. Mr. Elliott, we were in a discussion, and he said that we go to the supermarket and buy the Brazilian pork. I said, I'm representing the community here. And while we're saying they're doing that, it's because it's cheaper. And pork is pork in many people's opinion. So if you go to the supermarket and
Actually,
you can
it's
get 10 pounds of pork for, let's say, $40. I say, well, let's be practical here. And that's where the dollar stretch. So I did ask Mr. Elliott, what can the department do to ensure that the meat products is sold at a cheaper, so that more local person will want to buy the meat. And also you find that you go to the supermarket, and even though you might say that the supermarket vegetable might not be the best, it's cheaper in most cases rather than the local produce. And so I think that is where the conflict lies in terms of the price. Another concern I haven't eaten shaddock for years, and by tangerine, and I am wondering, and well, I came across a sour orange tree the other day. I was so happy I stopped to pick it, but probably prayed there last night because I saw it on the side of the road, and I did not know it, but I ventured to pick one, right? But I wonder if there's anything we can do to bring back shaddock. It used to be a full belly for people like us going to school those days, and by extension, tangerine.
Okay. Well, as it relates to those fruit trees, from when the minister opened, the first set of trees that we planted to start to kick off the 500 were citrus. We started with limes and sour orange. But it would not happen within this month, but within the month of June, we should be establishing some tangerine and oranges also in the month of June.
Okay. Randy, hold your thought, because we've been, discussing all along, and it's almost 9:45,
Yeah.
but it seems like someone wants to get in on the discussion. So let's cross over that line, and then we'll continue with the discussion. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Acting Premier Jeffers.
Good evening. Yes.
Good evening to the panel. This is Mark Brown.
Oh. No, I almost thought I was listening to Mandarin, but anyway. Good morning, Premier. Yes, we are on here this evening.
Thank you. I'm all the way here in Taipei, a day ahead of you.
Yes.
And I can tell you I'm listening to this show live and lively.
Yes.
And it makes my heart glad. I am so proud to be in the Vision right now. So just to hear about all that you're doing in terms of food security, the brilliant work that the team is doing in agriculture, the collaboration with community affairs, and the way that the government is working together to deliver for the people of Nevis. When I heard you talking about the abattoir and some 22 products, I'm very, very impressed. I can tell you that the folks here in Taiwan are also very impressed because, of course, they've contributed tremendously to agriculture in Nevis and in the wider St. Kitts and Nevis. And so it really makes my heart glad, and I just had to pick up the phone and call and just say how happy I am to hear of this tangible progress. I think sometimes we take these things for granted, and the people don't recognize or realize. We have a lot of negatives that are spread. People are constantly saying things are bad, nothing is happening. But these are examples of success stories in the island, success stories brought by our own people, because every single person on your panel there is a local, is an individual who's trained and qualified and who's contributing to the development of Nevis. So for my part, I just wanted to call to tell you all that you all are being listened to around the world.
That's right.
And that right here in Taipei, you're coming through live and lively.
If you have any of any of those colleagues of ours, I say colleagues of ours, meaning the Taiwanese, express our gratitude to them for sure, because listen, the exploits that we have had in agriculture here in the Federation, but more so on Nevis, can be attributed to the assistance we have received from the Republic of China, Taiwan, because they've introduced quite a number of different products to us here on the island of Nevis. The training has been phenomenal, because most of the training that we've had from the department standpoint have actually been passed on to our farmers here on the island of Nevis, and that is why there's a phenomenal production here on the island of Nevis, and they've been around for many, many years. The Republic of China Taiwan Technical Mission has been with us for almost 35 years, at least as long as we've been independent, and that is why we're seeing the fruits of their investment in agriculture here on the island of Nevis, and we want to thank them very much, and thank them in the future as well, because I don't think they're going anywhere soon.
Well, I will tell you that I had the distinct privilege of meeting with the President, President Tsai, and she recommitted publicly to St. Kitts and Nevis to assistance, particularly in increasing the number of scholarship opportunities. And we know, of course, that many have had training here in agriculture. I had a very interesting meeting with the ICDF, which is the investment arm, if you will, of the Taiwanese government that they use for cooperation and development. And they shared a video with us where they look at their work across the world. And who was featured in the video?
Nevis.
The one and only Randy Elliott.
Oh,
I saw that was, I mean, the whole team started to applaud. We thought that was quite interesting to see Randy and Davis, man, featured in the Taiwanese video, talking about the work of the ICDF, man. And he was wearing a nice suit and looked like he knew what he was talking about. And I think that all of those things are interesting. But the truth is, I'm leaving shortly. I have a meet with the foreign minister, and you can be assured, acting premier, that I will be raising these matters and thanking them.
Sure.
But I really just wanted to say my heart is really glad. I am delighted at the the progress we're making in agriculture, and I want public to really take notice and to continue in this effort to eat local, buy local, support the farmers. Farming is not like when we were small, where it was a man on a donkey and back-breaking work. Farming now is more technologically advanced. It certainly now is a business where even young people can make money from it, make a living from it. And I certainly continue to encourage you and the team. I think the job that is being done is phenomenal, and congratulations to all.
And we certainly appreciate your kind words, Premier, and I want you to stay safe and all the best for the rest of your time over there in Taiwan and moving
All
forward
right.
as well. Give my regards. Thank you.
Okay, good. I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank
All right.
you. Well, at least when we say we are listened to throughout the world, you understand. And that's why when I started, I said good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good day, whatever, because VON 860 AM is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean. And this new technology now gives us a platform where we can really get our voices out there to the world. And when people listen to what we are saying, and that is why we always say from the start of the show, listen, respect the station, respect yourself, because you're listened to throughout the world, and that is just an example of what we're talking about with the Premier just calling in from Taiwan. It's 10 minutes to 10 in the morning there. So, you know, it's early morning and persons over there, some of our brothers and sisters over there listening as well too. So, but we had a good discussion going, and it's almost 10 o'clock, 10 minutes to 10. But I wanted to just quickly highlight something, because when we assumed the responsibility of the Department of Agriculture back in 2013, you know, beef, for example, we were importing quite a bit of beef out of Statia. I don't want the persons down in Statia to feel slighted by this, but we talk about food security, and food security means that you must be able to produce locally in the event. And we have done a phenomenal job in beef production here on the island of Nevis. In that, we produce quite a bit of ground beef here on the island of Nevis. And we have persons coming from St. Kitts to buy as well too. And I think that is a plus for us, in that we're able to provide the island of Nevis. Sometimes the demand is greater than the supply. And that is a good thing, but we want to always maintain that, maintain the production whereby we can meet those demands. But I think we have someone else calling in. Let's entertain this call at this time. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Good evening, Mr. Jeffers,
Good evening.
and a pleasant good night to your panelists.
Good evening.
Good name.
This is Florine Williams. I'm here promoting the Nevis Renal Society Walkathon on the 25th of May. We're going to start at Long Point we're going to start at David Walwyn Fitness Center onto Long Point. And we have T-shirts that we are selling for $40, included breakfast. And you could purchase T-shirts from any member of the Renal Society, which could be myself. Number is 669-3477. Paulette Hanley, which is 665-1856, and Sherilyn Pemberton, which is 669-4185. And we're looking forward for our continuous support from our supporters.
Okay.
And Mr. Jeffers, what size T-shirt should I say for you?
XL. I got to bring my
XL.
size down, but that's what it is for now.
Okay, definitely. What about Mr. Sergeant?
I still wear XL.
Any one of the panelists would like me to save T-shirts for them also?
Well, I'm sure you know who the panelists are, so meet them tomorrow and put a T-shirt in their hand.
Okay.
Okay?
Guys, don't forget the Nevis Renal Society Walkathon. That's going to be on the 25th of May, starting 6 o'clock from the David Walwyn Fitness along to Long Point.
And then you culminate where? Where do you end? The
We're
villa?
going to end at the same place where we started from
Oh.
David Walwyn Fitness
Back
Center.
at the fitness grounds. Okay.
Uh-huh.
You seem to have a shorter walk this year.
You think so?
Yes.
Probably not.
Okay.
You'll be surprised. I hope you could make it.
Okay. Well, you have gotten all the word,
I don't
Florine.
think Jeff was going to make it this time.
The 25th, I should be available. Okay.
Okay, so
That's
I'm
a
going to save
Saturday.
your T-shirt for you.
Yeah.
You all
Okay.
have a pleasant evening.
Well, you have done your advertisement free of cost, but we understand the importance of of what you're trying to accomplish with your organization.
Yeah.
And we certainly encourage the entire division public, or as many persons as possible,
Okay.
to patronize the effort, because we
Thank you.
understand what the funds are being used
It's a
for.
worthy cause.
Worthy cause, yes. And even if you cannot walk on that day,
Please.
purchase the T-shirt, and it's
Exactly.
$40.
Or
You said.
whatever donation or contribution towards the Nevis Renal
Renal
Society.
Society. Okay,
Because we
very,
have to, buy a lot of stuff.
very good. And you do assist when you're called upon, if you can. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to see you guys, and we're gonna walk.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. Thanks, have a good
We'll see
evening.
you on the 25th then, and
On the
I save my
25th.
T-shirt.
Be
Yeah.
there for 6 o'clock.
That's all right.
We're
6
gonna
o'clock
have a warm-up
is bright
with,
morning now, so
Mr.
we'll see.
Walwyn before we start the walk.
Okay. Very good.
All right.
Okay,
At
Florian,
least
appreciate it.
5:45.
Yes. You have a good evening, and the word has gotten out, so we'll see where we go with this one, right? Okay, very good. So yes, guys, so we said we were here talking about all of the phenomenal stuff in agriculture. We are now celebrating our Agriculture Awareness Month, the 7th hosting of this particular month of activities. And of course, based on what we have imparted this evening, we're hoping that this would galvanize those efforts and those thinking and the energies out there in terms of agriculture, because we do believe agriculture is the savior of this island, and it's one of the major pillars of our economy. It probably doesn't generate the types of monies that perhaps the financial services may generate, but I tell you what, it can, and it will someday, because the mindset is changing. And if we can cut down on the import, cut down on the hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars that goes out of this country or this island to import some of these products, then of course it can be kept here. And if it is kept here, it means that we'll have farmers who are making more, and give them a lot more spending power in terms of what they can do with those monies. So we can see farmers, listen, you go to Trinidad and those places, they're millionaires, they're farmers. You go to South America, millionaires down there, because they're able to produce, mass produce and feed. But I want to say also that we have to find a way to ensure that at least, we spoke about it before, and that is starting with the school meals program, that even from the department standpoint, the schools, even if they don't have a garden, for example, or a greenhouse, we should be able to, from the department standpoint, to supply all of the schools here on the island, because all of them do have a school meals program, all of the primary schools. So we should be able to provide it with all of those products. So that is something we have to ensure that we are doing moving forward as well. Even though we don't want them to have a greenhouse in their on their premises, we have to make sure that if they are not able to produce a particular crop, that we, the Department of Agriculture, is able to provide it to them. Sweet potato is something that we are concentrating on. I said before, and I'm going to say it again. You go to Puerto Rico, for example, every dish you buy, you find a piece of cassava on it, because that is a part of their tradition and a part of their diet there. And I believe sweet potato can find its way onto in every possible dish that you produce here on the island of Nevis. So when persons come to Nevis, they would know that anything that they eat, you're getting a piece of sweet potato.
It used to be like that.
It used to be like that, right? And sweet potato is such a versatile craft.
On a Sunday.
You know, you can almost use. I had a cornmeal and fish the other day, and what was on the side? Some slices of
Sweet potato.
So, and then again, the nutritious value, you have to speak to that as well, because the orange sweet potato, of course, is one of the most nutritious sweet potato or variety you can get, because of course it having beta carotene, you having niacin, some words that I don't know about. But at least you read up on that particular variety and you know exactly what you can get out of those orange potatoes and potato fries and wedges, those kind of things. I'm always fascinated by these things that I believe we can produce here, but we buy them elsewhere, import them into Nevis, and we think we're importing something rather sophisticated and better than what we have. But I do believe that these things, with the right training and the right equipment, we can produce and put them right on the shelves here in Nevis. And Janet would then maybe lose 2 pounds too, and say she's eating locally, you know, and be a role model for many out there. But ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to On The Mark. We've been here since 8 p.m. this evening. Of course, the folks from the Department of Agriculture have been here from just about 20 minutes to 9. So we have covered quite some grounds here this evening. It's just about 3 minutes to 10. And when you're having a good time and the discussions are going well, sometimes time flies. And we're almost out of time. But let's see, you have something.
Yeah, I just want to wrap up. We have tomorrow we have our Eat Local Thursdays, and tomorrow we are at Ubrenta. The menu: cornmeal, ground provisions, roast breadfruit, saltfish, stew mutton, mashed green banana, and conch water. And that's at Ubrenta tomorrow, Thursday for Eat Local Thursday.
Starting what time? Because
And it starts, I think, 11.
about 11.
11, yeah.
Okay, good.
And on Friday we have our fresh produce sale, 10th May at the public market. Tomato, beets, carrots, cucumbers, onions, sweet potato, green banana, green plantain, thyme, celery, and butternut squash. Bargain prices at the public market. Come early.
On the 22nd, we have Eat Local. That's the following Thursday at
Yes.
Sunshine.
Yes.
So that is one that we'll have to support wholeheartedly as well. Then you spoke of the farmers market at the top of Government Road on the 24th,
Yeah.
Friday the 24th. Then another Eat Local, which is at Taste of Eden,
Yeah, and
which is just there by the Rollins Photo Lab.
yes.
That's on the 30th.
Yeah, 30th. Yeah.
We'll hear more about it, and then of course the culmination with that huge event which Miss Maloney spoke about earlier, which is the Meat Fest at the waterfront. That is going to be a very good activity that the whole of Nevis should attend as well. Randy?
Yeah, we just want to invite the general public, as I spoke earlier about the New River Farmers Group, to come out to New River. That's next week, Friday the 17th. For those who never saw the lighting of a chimney, you come to New River next week. There's a lot of funds and stuff over there, so we're just inviting the public to be over there. This year it's under the patronage of Winston Libert, or better known as Powers. So we're just hoping the general public to be there. So from this Friday, mark your calendars. Every Friday until the 31st, there's an event by Agriculture. So this Friday is the market. Next Friday is at New River. On the 24th is the top of Government Road. And on the 31st is the Meat Festival in collaboration with the Department of Community Development in Charlestown.
Okay. And that New River Farmers Cooperative Open, it gets bigger and bigger every year.
Yes.
I remember the first one, and I recall what last year was like. Steve, I want to thank you for coming. There's no parting shot, I'm sure, because time is out. Once you get they say strike up the band, we're going home. So we've had a good discussion here this evening. I want to thank you, Huey, Permanent Secretary, for coming, Randy, Director of Agriculture, Chief Extension Officer, Steve Reed, and of course, Director of Community Affairs, Mrs. Janet Maloney, for coming by this evening on short notice. And I think we had a lively discussion this evening. Don't worry about calls, guys. This was not about calls this evening. This was about us coming and imparting some information to the general public. And there are shows you have to have like this. And I appreciate you coming, and I certainly had fun here with you this evening. Thank you for coming, and I want to thank from the first segment, Javier Atley and Chevany Nisbet for coming by from the Environmental Health and Health Promotion Unit, and they were talking about mosquitoes. So we've had a wonderful night. It's now 10 o'clock. We want to thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this program. I invite you to join us again next week, same time at 8 p.m. here on the Caribbean's only powerhouse, VON Radio, for another edition of On the Mark. But of course, there's a rebroadcast of this program tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here on the Caribbean's only powerhouse, 8:60 a.m. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and have yourself a wonderful night.